Let me tell you a story, young one. A story of how Toban City damn near tore itself apart back in '89. I was there, mind you. Saw it with my own two eyes. I'm old Man Toban, named after this blasted place, or maybe it's the other way around. Folks mix up the details, but that's nothing new here. Now, some folks will swear to you that President Auric Stryker was a visionary, a man of the people who wanted to make Toban City great again. Me? I never bought his sweet talk for a second. If you ask me, he was nothing more than a snake oil salesman in a fancy suit. Oh, he had that charm. Spoke to us through those huge hologram billboards all over the city. Told us about the bright future he'd deliver. But behind that honeyed speech was an iron fist waiting to close around our throats. You see, before the corporations turned Toban into what it is today, Stryker was our last true president, if you can call a man that corrupt true at all. He promised the common folk new jobs, more affordable housing, and a city restored to its former glory. But the second we put him behind the big desk in the Citadel, he started showing his real face. Opponents disappeared. Ethics investigations were shut down. And if you dared to speak against him in public, you could bet the Oathkeepers would come knocking on your door next morning. Ah, yes, the Oathkeepers, Stryker's personal army of fanatics, all convinced they were defending some master race. Most dangerous of the lot was their leader, Commander Cassius Alwyn. He was a tall fellow with cold eyes. Folks say he could make a crowd cheer or cower with a single speech. So charismatic you almost forgot his words dripped with hatred. A brutal man, too. He never shied from violence, especially if it meant erasing people he deemed undesirable. I can still picture his squads marching into neighborhoods, rounding up families. Some vanished outright, never to be seen again. Others limped back, half dead from so-called re-education. Over time, the city rotted from the inside out. You had the wealthy and powerful holed up in lavish towers near the city center, while the rest of us got pushed farther and farther away, into what we started calling downtown. That's where the rundown tenements were, the smoke-belching factories, the streets that looked like a war zone even before the war. In these dingy backstreets, whispers of rebellion began to stir. Little factions popped up like weeds, each one burning with anger but unsure how to fight back. That's when a man named Ryden Vaughn, a former city guard who'd seen too much injustice, pulled these ragtag groups together under one name, M13. Word spread quick. M13 was taking in fighters, ex-cops, medics, anyone who'd been wronged by Stryker's regime. Their plan wasn't just to stir up trouble. They wanted to strike at the heart of power, tear down the Citadel brick by brick if they had to. Those rebels believed it was better to die fighting than to watch the city they loved turn into a playground for bigots and tyrants. All the while, the Oathkeepers escalated their terror, directed by Cassius Alwyn. He'd hold rallies, whipping his followers into a frenzy, spewing the same vile nonsense about purifying Toban. The tension in the air was so thick you could choke on it. It felt like something was going to snap any second. Sure enough, 2189 dawned, and the city was a powder keg, just waiting for the smallest spark. They say it all started with a single shot somewhere in downtown. One of M13's scouts put a bullet in an Oathkeeper captain who'd been terrorizing local merchants. The Oathkeepers struck back with tear gas and armed patrols, but M13 was ready. They unleashed carefully planned ambushes, crippling city infrastructure. Within hours, Toban City descended into pure chaos. Buildings burned, civilians ran for cover, and the Oathkeepers found themselves overwhelmed by an enemy that struck from the shadows. Downtown riots spread uptown. Even those who weren't M13 sympathizers saw the writing on the wall. They took to the streets, furious at how Stryker had hollowed out the city's soul. While the Oathkeepers were busy squash the uprising. Ryden Vaughn led a small strike force right into the Citadel's underbelly. They had inside help, some old workers who knew maintenance tunnels even the Oathkeepers hadn't discovered. One by one, M13 squads took out guard posts and sabotaged security systems. I wasn't there in person. No, sir, I was too old for that kind of action. But I heard the stories from those who survived. They said the firefight in the Citadel's grand foyer was something out of nightmares. Energy rifles cutting down rebels, bullet casings clinking on marble floors, and the walls echoing with battle cries. Bodies fell on both sides, but M13 kept pushing forward, unstoppable in their rage. Finally, they reached Auric Stryker's private chamber. The place was decked out like some old emperor's throne room. Gold trim, towering ceilings, frescoes of Stryker's so-called achievements. And there, cornered like a rat, was President Auric Stryker himself, clinging to a high-powered pistol and barking orders into a comm device that spat static right back at him. From what I hear, Stryker ranted to Vaughn about how he was the only one who could save Toban, claimed he was misunderstood, that everything he did was for the greater good. But no one bought that line anymore. He fired off a few shots, killed at least one rebel, but took a blast to the chest for his trouble. They say he fell to his knees, tried to speak one last time, but only managed to wheeze before the life drained out of him. The rebels stood there, stunned, finally free of the tyrant who tormented us for years, but at a terrible cost in blood and sorrow. News of Stryker's death spread faster than a brush fire. Downtown erupted in celebration, even as the city burned around us. The Oathkeepers lost their backbone, many surrendered or fled outright. But let me not forget about Commander Alwyn. Now, there are plenty of rumors about what happened to that vicious man. Some folks swear he put a bullet in his own head rather than let M13 take him alive. Others claim they saw him slipping through the night, heading for the city limits with a bag full of bribe money. Some even say he's still out there, biding his time, waiting to raise another army. One thing's for sure. The Oathkeepers as we knew them were dismantled. Their chain of command collapsed, and their hateful ideology had to skulk back into the shadows where it belonged. So, that's how Toban's last president met his end. It was a victory, sure, but not a clean one. The city was left in tatters, with half the population in mourning and the other half trying to figure out how to rebuild. Ryden Vaughn and M13, for their part, did their best to restore some sense of order, but the scars ran deep, and the war that was coming in 2210 would cast an even darker shadow across Toban. You might be asking, why tell this story now? Well, sometimes folks need reminding of what blind faith in a sweet-tongued politician can do. We thought we had liberty and justice, but it turned out to be a mirage conjured by a man with too much power. If there's a lesson in the riot of 2189, it's that tyranny can be toppled, but the cost is always steep, and the fight's never truly over. Remember that, youngster. Remember Auric Stryker, the Oathkeepers, and the blood spilled by M13. There'll always be those who hunger for power at any price, and it's our job, whether we're old men or fresh-faced kids, to stand against them when they come for our city again. Keep this story in your heart. Let it guide you when the next struggle comes. Because, by the grid, it will come. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the riot of 2189, be sure to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping tales from the world of Toban. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant, and never let tyranny find safe harbor in your city.